This is the Alden Report.
Today's episode is brought to you by FrontRowBenefits.com, connecting consumers and businesses with front row access to the greatest health insurance that the United States has to offer. Visit FrontRowBenefits.com. Folks, listen, if you're like me, if you own a business, if you have a family, or if you're an individual and you're looking for front row access to healthcare, maybe you're tired of your premiums going up. Maybe you don't want to pay those high deductibles anymore. Maybe you're tired of paying more and more for your monthly prescriptions, and you want to make sure that you're getting that VIP access, that front row access. Then visit FrontRowBenefits.com and get a free quote. They're connecting consumers and businesses with the top level insurance carriers in the United States at discounted prices. Visit FrontRowBenefits.com. That's FrontRowBenefits.com.
This is the Alden Report.
All right. Well, we are here in Blue Vase Studios, and I'm rocking my 99-cent glasses. Gel today, but that's all right. It's a beautiful day here in New England, and I tell you, I'm super excited for my next guest. My next guest is a world-renowned author, a world-renowned speaker, a world-renowned human behavioralist. I think that's what we call someone like him. And he just helps people all over the world break through and live the life that you really want. You hear this all the time, and there are a lot of people that are out there that are trying to do this. This guy's been doing this for over 40 plus years. Please help me welcome Mr. Dr. Demartini. Doctor, thanks so much for being here.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
So before we get into, first of all, again, like I said, I'm super excited to have you on, but where are you right now?
I'm in Barcelona, Spain.
But there's a little more to it. It's more than just Barcelona, Spain.
Well, I'm at the port actually on a ship that I live on, and but I'm at Barcelona. It's a beautiful city. It's absolutely gorgeous. The sun is about to set here, and it's just lovely here.
Well, I thought that was pretty cool because so you're on a condo on a ship, and I know that you travel all over the world. I've watched a bunch of your videos, and you're truly are a world traveler. And again, thanks again for spending the time. So we were introduced by a mutual friend, and I've heard of you, and I've seen some of your stuff, and it's really kind of great, what you're doing. And like I mentioned in the opening, a lot of people out there are trying to kind of like hold themselves out as these experts or these gurus or what have you, but you've been doing this for a long time. I would consider you one of the kind of the early adopters, or one of the first people out there that really puts together like real programs and real psychology and real science to help people break through and to live the life they want, right?
Well, that's my goal and intention. I started in 1972. That's when my dream began. And I've been doing it. I'm 67 here in about a month and a half. And so I've been doing it 49 years. I've been in the education business 49 years.
I don't know if it was on your website or one of your YouTube videos, but I saw kind of the story when you were a young man, or late teens, and you had this experience in Hawaii, where it was literally a life-altering experience. Tell us a little bit about that moment when your life shifted, because you hear these stories a lot where people have this moment in life, and then their lives are forever changed because of that one thing.
Well, when I was 17 years old, I was living on the North Shore of Oahu, at Iikai Beach Park to Haleiwa area, Sunset to Haleiwa. And I was riding big waves. I was a big wave rider. And I had the opportunity to be in some surf movies and surf magazines and surf books and stuff, and got to surf with some pretty cool guys. And I nearly died at age 17. And in the recovery of that, I was led to a little yoga class where a guest speaker was speaking. And a gentleman named Paul C. Bragg was speaking. And he was a health enthusiast and went on crusades trying to inspire people to eat wisely and live more naturally. And the one night he spoke, there's only about 25 to 30 people in the room. And he just was there and present. And what he said shifted my thinking. He said that we have a body, we have a mind, and we have a soul. And the body must be directed by the mind, and the mind must be guided by the soul, the real, authentic ourselves, in other words, to direct us to do something extraordinary with our life. And he said, you want to set goals for yourself, your family, your community, your city, your state, your nation, your world, and beyond for 100 to 120 years. And he said, you have to take command of what you think about, what you visualize, what you affirm, what you feel, what you take actions on a daily basis, and start to prioritize that onto what's truly meaningful to you. And if you do, and you prioritize that every day and stick to that every day, you build momentum that eventually becomes unstoppable. Well, nobody talked to me like that. I was a high school dropout. I was a street kid and a surf bum with long hair and a beard back in 1960s and 70s. And nobody ever talked to me like that. And I had learning problems and speaking problems and all kind of things at the early part of my life, and left school. And so that night, I don't know how to describe it, but I literally, in a meditation that he guided us through, I saw a vision of me speaking in front of a big audience of people in a giant square with iconic buildings from around the world in the background. It's the strangest thing, which is painted in my office today in Houston, Texas, in Williams Tower. It's a 5-foot by 4-foot painting of this vision that I saw. And that was the night I believed that maybe I could overcome my learning problems and eventually speak properly. And I had a dream to go out and overcome my reading and learning and speaking. And I gradually overcame them. It was a slow process. I mean, I took a GED. I tried to go back to school. I failed. And one day when I was about to give up, my mom said, "Son, what's wrong? You're distraught. What is it?" And all I could do is hear my first grade teacher talking in the back of my head. "I'm afraid your son will never read, write, or communicate, never amount to thing, never go very far in life. You're going to have to put him into sports because he's never going to be able to do it academically, learning wise," because I had problems in learning. And my mom said to me, "Son, whether you become a great teacher and travel the world like you dream, or whether you go back and ride giant waves, or whether you go and return to the streets, I just want to let you know your father and I are going to love you no matter what. Whatever you decide to do, we're there. We'll back you." And I needed to hear that at that moment. My hand went into a fist when she said that. And I said to myself, I'm going to master this thing called reading, teaching, and philosophy. I'm going to master this thing called teaching, and I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to travel whatever distance. I'm going to pay whatever price to give my service of love across this planet. I'm not going to let any human being on the face of the earth stop me, not even myself. I got up and I hugged my mom and I went into my room. I got a dictionary out and I started memorizing the words in the dictionary one by one until that dictionary was mine. And my mom helped me memorize, testing me on 30 words a day until my vocabulary was strong enough to pass school. And then I never stopped. I started reading. I've never stopped reading. I've read over 30,000, nearly 600 books since then. And I read every single day because I've been so blessed to be able to find out I could.
Wow, man. I've heard some of the story. You tell some of the story before, and I'm listening to you. There's so many things that I want to kind of try and dissect that a little bit. But, I grew up similar, very difficult background, surrounded by crime, drugs, violence, family members that are, dead or in prison, and kids I grew up with. And you talk about that kind of that moment. And I had Dan Coyle on my podcast. He wrote the book called The Talent Code. He talks about the ignition moment in life, right? Whereas that, the book is more kind of sports related for people. And so if you hadn't have had that dream or that vision, do you still think you would have kind of went down the road that you've gone down now, or was it that dream that really kind of was the tipping point for you? Because the reason why I ask is because I think that part is very unique about your story. The other part about overcoming adversity, and you hear it all the time with great people, they have these setbacks, or they have these kind of negative moments in their life, and they turn them around into a positive. But do you think you would have continued on if it wasn't for that vision?
I don't know the answer to that. I can speculate, but I do believe that vision still brings a tear of inspiration.
Yeah.
And people ask me, quite often, why do you, the guy just at dinner tonight, he says, you do 5 to 7 podcasts a day, over 1,000 interviews a year, and 350 speeches a year, and you write tons of books every year. Why do you do that? And I get teary-eyed and I tell them because I can.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that vision did have an impact on me. I don't know if I hadn't had that epiphany that day, what would have happened. I might not have had that clarity to accomplish that, but I do believe that vision, because when I look at that vision in my office, it is deeply meaningful to me. And what's interesting is I've spoken in 154 countries now, and I've traveled to many more, and over 2,000 something cities speaking. And I had a dream that night to step foot on every country on the face of the earth and share whatever I learn with whoever wants to hear it. And I haven't reached all the cities yet. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm still working on the project, and I live where I live because it assists me in getting to places around the world that I want to speak at too. So, I did a black tie affair to 5 million penguins in Antarctica just so I could speak there. They're all lined up on the beach.
Did you get a standing ovation? Wait,
I got a standing ovation. I think some laid some eggs and some cackled at me, but I also spoke there, for other purposes to other people on the ship. But the point was that I wanted to go to every continent and every country and try to meet people from every culture, to appreciate people from every land, and share something of contribution and value. That was a dream that I'm still working on. I'm not going to stop until that dream is manifested. Now with Zoom, I have students in every country on the earth today from Zoom, because of Zoom and social media. I just haven't stepped foot in every country, but I'm still working on it. So still cranking away on it.
In a second, I want to talk to you about some of those negative things that happened to you, like what your first grade teacher said, or some of the kind of natural things that were, I would consider a gift of yours, of your difficulty in reading and some of these things. I want to talk about that in a second, and how you kind of use that as a superpower. Folks, we're on with Dr. John Demartini. He is a world-renowned expert. He is an author. He speaks all over the world. You heard him say he's been to over 154 countries, and it's a really beautiful thing what he's doing. He's doing this truly to help others. And if you've been listening up until this point, you heard kind of where his inspiration has come from. And if you'd like some more information about Dr. Demartini, you can just go to drdemartini.com. You can also check him out on Instagram. It's Dr. John Demartini. He's got that little blue check box, so that little blue check mark, so you know that it's definitely him. And he's got a really interactive page there on Instagram. He's got reels, and he's got IGTV videos, and he interacts with people as well. So if you'd like some more information, please go there. Also, you can check out his books. He's written, I don't know, out of like 30 books or something like that. You can find his books right there on Amazon as well. You could just put in or you actually just put in just John Demartini. You can find his books. So let's talk about the negative things that people have. So, for me, it's funny when you told that story about your first grade teacher. I had my senior year in high school, I had my guidance counselor tell me that college wasn't for everybody. And I should maybe consider, thinking about some sort of manual labor. I'm a big dude, so and I swear a lot from Boston. I'm not going to swear. I don't know what your take is on swearing, but we swear a lot from Boston. But I wanted to say
I call them sacred acronyms.
I call them sentence enhancers, right? And
sacred acronyms.
Yeah, and so I kind of use that to my advantage. Talk about so many of us are dealt with just horrible situations. You're just born into a tough situation, or you're just born and you have a disability or what have you. And you see this all the time where people have all these kind of forces working against them, but those are the ones that also rise to the top and become super successful. I think it's like the gift of adversity, right? So tell us a little bit about the actual mind and how it works, because I know you talk a lot about how the actual brain works. And I'd love to hear your perspective on negative things that happen to people and how you can really turn that into a positive.
Well, we have control over three things in our life: our sensory neuron perceptions, our interneuron decisions, and our motor neuron actions.
Okay. All right. Now, I'm a smart guy, but I mean, you might have to bring it down a little bit for me, a little bit on some of that stuff.
Okay. Well, we have three types of basic neurons in the brain.
Okay.
Nerves. Some that take information in, which is senses, which are involved in perception. Ones that make decisions, which are interneurons. They're in between the sensory and motor. And the motor neurons, which are the actions, the ones that affect muscles.
Okay.
So these three neurons we have control over, and therefore we can control our perceptions, decisions, and actions. William James, the father of modern psychology, said that the greatest discovery of his generation, and this is 130 years ago, was that human beings can alter their lives by altering their perceptions and attitudes of mind. So I'm a firm believer that there is no event out there other than a neutral event until somebody interprets that and makes a heaven out of a hell or a hell out of a heaven out of an event. And every event has two sides. You can choose to see the downsides, or you can choose to see the upsides, or you can choose to see both sides. If you see the downside and you're conscious of the downside and unconscious the upside, you're going to resent it and avoid it and create an impulse and try to, activate your amygdala to avoid it. If you see the upsides and conscious the upsides, unconscious the downside, you're going to create an impulse of the nucleus accumbens in the amygdala, and you're going to be seeking it, and you're going to be infatuated or resentful or fantasied and nightmared, and you're going to be distracted by those emotions, which kind of occupy space and time in your mind and distract you and create noise in the brain. Or you can see mindfully both sides and be fully conscious of both sides at once, and be poised and present and purposeful, and see things on the way instead of in the way. Because the distractions, we've all been distracted by things we infatuate. We've also been distracted by things we resent. But when we see both sides, we're present. And when we're present and objective and we're neutral, that's where we have command over our life. Otherwise, the external factors preoccupy us and distract us and run our lives with our impulses and instincts, our animal nature instead of our, you might say, our human nature. So I'm a firm believer in asking quality questions that are intuitive questions that liberate us from those distractions, see both sides, and not let the external world dictate how we perceive things. We have the ability to ask questions to see both sides and take command of our life. If we don't use our intuition and our physiology to guide us back into homeostasis and balance and take command, then the sociology and the theology will take command. If we don't govern ourselves, we get governed from the world around us. Followers are governed from around us. Leaders are governed from within. Intrinsic leaders are people that have self-governance, and people that are followers are people that have to be governed from the outside. Government was for those that couldn't govern themselves.
Man, you would, I knew this about you, but we would say here from Boston that you're wicked smart, as we would say. No R there. There's no R. The SMAHT. Man, I just love listening to you. So when as I'm listening to you, and I'm sure the people that are listening or watching later on, I like to talk about this a lot. When you're going through that stuff, that negative stuff, right? And I love what you're talking about, seeing both sides, because as I'm a lawyer by trade, and I can always see both sides, and depending on what side of the table is where my argument's going to go. But when one is going through that negative stuff in life, whether it be financial, physical, whatever it is, right? It is extremely difficult to not focus on that negative stuff that you're going through, and especially if it's being piled on you, right? Because a lot of times it happens, right? It seems like the universe is working against you, right? So what do you say to those people? Like, maybe, I know you have you teach students, like you mentioned, all over the world. I know if people go to your website, drdemartini.com, you have courses and videos that people can participate in as well. But what's a tip that people can kind of hold on to, that are going through some shit right now, and they're like, man, I hear what he's saying, but how do I actually do it?
Well, the first thing to do is to stop the story that it's a negative event. Because if you run that story, you're going to myelinate the amygdala, and you're going to end up with a subjective bias, accentuating that with drama. We have the amygdala and we have the executive center. One's called the desire center, one's the executive center. The executive center uses intuition to bring us back into homeostasis and balance. The amygdala dramatizes things to polarize things for survival. If you see prey, you need a high degree of adrenaline to run after it to catch the prey. So if you're infatuated with a positive thing, you automatically create an adrenaline drama in order to capture it. And if you see something that's challenging that represents predator, you get another adrenaline kick in, dramatize it to get out of there because of survival. So our survival instinct is based on our ratio of perceptions. And if we run that story, it's going to prolong. So the first thing is stop the story. Stop being a victim of history and start being a master of destiny. And ask a simple question, because the quality of your life is based on the quality of the questions you ask. What specifically is the upside to this event that's happening? How is it helping me fulfill what I feel is my highest priority, my mission, the thing that's most meaningful to me? And ask that question. If you ask that question and don't say, I don't know, and be accountable, you will find out that it's ultimately on the way. We've had events in our life we thought were terrible. A day, a week, a month, a year, 5 years later, we look back and go, oh God, I'm so thankful that occurred now. Why have the wisdom of the ages with the aging process? You can have the wisdom of the ages without it by asking the question that's going to make you realize those upsides. They're there right away, but you're overlooking it with a bias. The same thing on a terrific event. We buy a house, we think, oh my God, we got the dream house. And then we find cracks and maintenance and taxes and cleaning and landscaping.
Mowing the lawn.
Mowing the lawn and furniture and cost and this. And we go, oh my God, I thought this was going to be a positive thing. And now I realize it's trapping me and I don't go anywhere anymore because I feel like I'm paying for this thing, So these are illusions. Anytime you see one-sided events, you have an illusion. If I was to go up to somebody and I said, you're always positive, never negative, always kind, never cruel, always giving, never taking, always generous, never stingy, always peaceful, never wrathful, would you believe me? They go, no. Oh, you're always mean, you're never nice, you're always cruel, you're never kind, you're always negative, never positive, always wrathful, never peaceful. No. If I said to them, sometimes you're nice, sometimes you're mean, sometimes you're kind, sometimes you're cruel, sometimes you're giving, sometimes you're taking, they go, yep. We intuitively know that we have both sides about ourselves. We intuitively know when somebody tries to put on an air of a saint, there's also a hidden agenda inside. There's the other side. We know this because we intuitively know that there's two sides, but we allow our amygdala and our drama to run its story and slow down the process of discovering the other side. Mindfulness is the willingness to see both sides now. Mindlessness is allowing the animal impulses and instincts to run us and dramatize our story, and we become victims of history. And we let that all stay stored in the subconscious mind where it creates noise and causes chaos in our life. And then we end up looking for immediate gratification through quick fixes to try to solve it instead of look inside and introspect and discover the power we have to see both sides and ask questions to hone us back into our authentic self. Because if we look up at something, we'll minimize ourselves. If we look down on something, we'll exaggerate ourselves. We want to be loved for who we are, but we're not going to be loved for who we are if we're exaggerating and minimizing ourselves because we're not being ourselves. The way we love ourselves is to have a reflective awareness and see that what we see in the world around us is a reflection of what we're projecting, what's inside us.
Are so many people stuck in their history because it's easy to use past bad experiences as an excuse for where they're at in life, because, or is, I mean, is that why people do it? It's just easier to just explain, well, geez, I'm here because, you know, my parents were alcoholics, or I'm here because, you know, the economy crashed, or I'm here because of this or that. Is it easier to just make that excuse and then just put that in the back of, I don't know what part of the brain, but in the back of your mind, so that you just don't know about it, just don't think about it?
It's not easier. People think it is. They may get attention and sympathy from people who really don't care about them. Sometimes people, I always say that sometimes compassion and sympathy for people is one wounded individual buying into the wounds of another, instead of both growing up and taking on and finding the blessings out of what's going on in life. You know, I'm a firm believer that there's two sides. So if you want to run the story, I don't find that productive. I don't let people do that in my seminars. I said, if you want to do that, you're going to have to go to a rah-rah seminar. If you want to grow up and mature and master your life, let's ask a new question. Let's ask a question. How are we using this? I had a young boy who was sent to me by a parent who had supposedly dyslexia and learning problems like myself. And because they heard my story, they thought I could help him. And he was sitting there running a story that people had told him, well, because you have dyslexia, you have these problems, and that's what typically happens with them. And the whole labeling process occurred. And all I did is, the first time I met with him, I said, you're good on a computer? And he goes, yeah. I said, can you open up your little phone and look something up for me? And he said, yeah. Okay, let's look up on Google something. And we got on Google and we looked up famous people that were dyslexic. And there's a bunch of them.
Yeah, there are.
You know, from Richard Branson, there's a bunch of them. And I said, I just want to let you know that you're a very special individual and you're in this category. And I made him read all the names. And I said, you know who that is? He's one of the greatest billionaire business people. You know who that is? He's a great singer. And I said, if you don't know, let's look them up. And I made him look up these quality, amazing, high achieving individuals that started out like him. And when I did that, instead of writing a story that, you know, he's a victim of history, and that's the problem he's got, I said, you're in a special category of doing something extraordinary on the planet. What is inside you that you're going to do? That's what these people have done. What is your mission? And I talked to him differently. And I've watched people realize potential they didn't know they had by repositioning their perceptions about who they are. Because I had a lady that was abandoned by her mother, supposedly. And just writing that story, I'm abandoned. I was rejected. Nobody wanted me, you know, and that's the reason why I've got, you know, the rape case I've had. And that's the reason I've had the boyfriends that have beat me and all this other stuff. And they were just justifying it, blaming and dissociating. You will never empower your life blaming, because the second you blame and dissociate and think something outside you caused your reality, you're going to look for some savior on the outside to fix it. And you're going to be dissociated from the real power, which is your perception and your own actions. You know, the Epictetus, the Greek philosopher, said, when you start on your journey, you blame things on the outside. When you go a little further on your journey, you blame yourself. When you finally get to the real mastery of the journey, you realize there's nothing to blame. It's just all on the way. It's just a journey of opportunity. So I saw this lady who basically thought she wouldn't do this. And I asked her a simple question. The moment your mom left, what did you think you missed? What behavior did you expect her to deliver that you didn't get? And she started listing those. And I said, great, who took that on? Because nothing's missing. I met with a Bonpo Lama in Nepal and we had a conversation about the idea of nothing missing. And I asked her, I said, so what did you think was missing and who took it on? And she said, well, my aunt and my mother's best friend. And a teacher kind of took some of it on. Great. What was the benefit of them taking it on instead of your mother? And she goes, well, they were specialized in some things that I do today. I said, so your mother basically was smart enough to delegate higher quality training and insights for you for that at that point? And she goes, I never thought of it that way. I said, what else did you miss? I said, who took that on? And I just had to realize that everything she thought was missing was transformed into other people playing that role. And when she saw that, I said, what would have been the draw? Mom had done that. she said, I wouldn't have had the skills of that. And then all of a sudden, she just realized something that had buried in her mind. So she goes, oh my God, she started bawling. And she said, my mom was bipolar. And my aunt told me that she was bipolar and wasn't of great health, and felt that you deserved you were special and you deserved something greater than what she could offer you. And her love for you gave you to your aunt and the rest of the people, because she felt that it would be destructive to your life to have her around you with her condition. When she did that, she bawled. And she realized that her mom didn't abandon her. Her mom loved her in a new way. And then she realized, I'm not going to waste my life now blaming things. I'm going to turn this into an opportunity and find my mom and thank her. And it shifted her life unbelievably. A change in perception. Because nothing's missing. It's in a form that we don't honor. And we sometimes have a fantasy and project what we value onto other people and expect them to live in our values, which is self-defeating. And we hold ourselves back from doing something extraordinary because we set up these unrealistic expectations on the world around us to live in our values, or the world around us to be one-sided, or that we're supposed to live in other people's values instead of our own cause, our own mission. And these set ourselves up for self-defeat. And it's not that there's nobody here that has the incapacity to do something extraordinary, but they just have some misperceptions and mispriorities in their life, trying to fit in and not stand out and allow themselves their uniqueness and genius to come to the surface.
Wow. I know it's a little bit later over there, and I don't want to keep you too much longer, but in a second, before I do let you go, I want to talk to you a little bit about the work involved for people, because that story you just told, the perception almost immediately changed this woman's life, but there's also work involved in changing people's mindset. I want to talk a little bit about that in just a moment. We're on with Dr. John Demartini. He is a world-renowned expert in human behavior. He is a prolific international best-selling author. He's been doing it for over 40 plus years, almost close to 50 years now, helping people all over the world really kind of live the life that they want and desire, whatever that is for you. And you're just listening to him today. Again, we've been at this now for almost 7 years, and we've had over 150 guests. And I tell you, I am so blessed to have you here today. So if you'd like some more information about Dr. Demartini, you can just go to drdemartini.com. It's drdemartini.com. You can check him out on Instagram, Dr. John Demartini. You can also, he's on LinkedIn. You just Google the guy, and he's got videos everywhere. And he also has, courses and trainings and his books out there that really help people. And he's been doing it for a long time. And you can just see it if you're watching right now, and you can hear it in his voice that it's genuine, that he cares. And these are the types of people that we bring on the Alden Report. He's on a boat in Spain right now. I think it's like 8 o'clock his time. It's 1 hour time. And he's spending the time with us. And guess what? He's doing it for free, so that you can have the life that you ultimately want. And for me, I'm blessed. It's almost like I get to have like a master's in psychology from just listening to people like yourself, Dr. Demartini.
Today's episode is brought to you by FrontRowBenefits.com, connecting consumers and businesses with front row access to the greatest health insurance that the United States has to offer. Visit FrontRowBenefits.com. Folks, listen, if you're like me, if you own a business, if you have a family, or if you're an individual and you're looking for front row access to healthcare, maybe you're tired of your premiums going up. Maybe you don't want to pay those high deductibles anymore. Maybe you're tired of paying more and more for your monthly prescriptions, and you want to make sure that you're getting that VIP access, that front row access. Then visit FrontRowBenefits.com and get a free quote. They're connecting consumers and businesses with the top level insurance carriers in the United States at discounted prices. Visit FrontRowBenefits.com. That's FrontRowBenefits.com.
The work that's involved. Earlier, you talked about, when you were younger and you had to overcome your own, personal challenges with reading and taking the GED and putting in the work and studying 30 words a day and having your mom help. When people are looking for a change in life, I think in this instant gratification world that we live in, you pop a pill, it solves your problem. People want that instant gratification. Talk a little bit about, really the work that's involved for people that want better things in life and change life. It doesn't happen immediately, but there are things that you said that can change things pretty quickly. But talk about the work that's really involved.
Well, many people want something external to do it for them instead of taking on the accountability. And that's primarily because they're pursuing something that's not deeply meaningful. Because when you're doing something that's really, truly deeply meaningful, you're spontaneously inspired to act on it within, and it doesn't feel like work. I do, I did for 35 years, I slept 4 hours a day and did 18 to 20 hour day, typical, doing what I love doing. And I don't ever see it as work. And people say, well, that's got to be stressful. I'm 67. I don't feel like I'm 67. I feel like I'm about 55 or 50 or something. And so I don't think that that's the cytokines and all the inflammatories and pro-inflammatories and anti-inflammatories are regulated and balanced if you're doing something you really love to do. And you don't age as much doing that. It's having to force yourself to do something that's not inspiring that kind of wears you down. So it's not really work. It is in the sense you're putting hours in, but it doesn't feel like work when you're doing something that's deeply meaningful. Do I have time to share a story? I think that might be really be helpful.
I got you. Absolutely. I'll keep you here all night if you want to stay. Absolutely. I know you're busy, so I don't want to keep you for a long time. Yeah.
Okay. So I was teaching one of my signature programs, which I've taught 1,133 times in London a few years ago, and called the Breakthrough Experience. And there was a lady there on the second day who put her hand up. And she said, Dr. Demartini, and we were just now targeting and focusing on what do you really want to, what is your life really demonstrating you're committed to? What are you really wanting to call your purpose, if you will? And she says, I don't know. I just can't seem to figure it out. And I said, listen, I've been doing this longer than you're alive. And I'm absolutely certain that your heart knows. The only reason you're having hesitancy about saying what it is because you're comparing it to somebody else and judging yourself and afraid to put it down on paper. So what do you do every single day that nobody has to remind you to do, that you spontaneously do, that inspires you, that you love doing every day? And she says, I don't know. No, I said, stop the racket, be present with my question and answer the question. What do you do every single day that you are spontaneously inspired to do it? You do it not because anybody motivates you to do it. You just do it every single day and you love doing it. And she said, be with my kids. I said, you have two beautiful children, I heard. She says, I have two really amazing children. I said, is that what you fill your space? If I went down and did a drone watching you, do I see you surround yourself in your space with your kids? Yeah, they're with me all day. And do you spend your time with your kids? That's what you spend most of your day doing? Yes. And is that what energizes you? You always have energy for them. You wake up in the weird hours, whatever it takes to do. I'm there for them. And if you get any money from whatever you earn, is a lot of it goes to helping kids and in the developing of your kids. She says, that's where most of it goes. I said, and is that where you're most organized and ordered? Yes. Is that where you're most disciplined? Yes. And is that what you think about, visualize, and talk to yourself about most, about how you want your life and how you want their life? Is that what you dwell on and focus on? She goes, yes. And when you talk to people, do you keep bringing up relationship with kids and talk about how's your kids and talk about your kids? Yep, you got me. And what inspires you is watching them grow and develop. She get teary-eyed when I said that. And I said, in the goals that you set out, is that what you set out? Do you want to be a mother and help raise some beautiful children? She goes, yeah. And she got teary-eyed again. I said, listen, is that enough? I said, Rose Kennedy from the Kennedy family, who I have a book from their family with her mission statement written in the book. And her mission statement is that I dedicate my life to raising a family of world leaders. I said, so don't ever imagine that raising a beautiful family is not a profound thing on planet Earth. If your heart and soul and your calling is to raise beautiful children, then honor that. The only reason you're not honoring that is you're comparing yourself to somebody else, a friend who may have a different set of values, may be focused on business or social causes or spiritual causes or whatever. and they're not as focused on children as you, and you're comparing yourself to them. We're not here to compare ourselves to other people. We're here to compare our own daily actions to what we value most in life. We're not here to put people on pedestals or pits. We're here to put them in our heart. Because as long as we have them on a pedestal, we're going to minimize ourselves, and we're going to try to be a cat trying to swim like a fish, and we're going to beat ourselves up. Honor who you are. You're a mother dedicated to children at this stage of your life. 10 years from now, you may have a different stage, but right now, honor that. And she cried and she hugged me, and she says, that's all I've ever wanted to do. And I said, well, then give yourself permission to shine as an authentic individual, doing what you love, making a difference in the world. Because people lie to themselves that they don't know, but deep inside their life is demonstrating what they're committed to, but they don't honor it because they're comparing themselves to other people and minimizing themselves to people they put on pedestals instead of put them in their hearts. And so this lady demonstrated to the whole room how important it was to be authentic.
One more question for you before you go. I feel like when I hear that story, and I think about others too who, maybe they do know and they want to do something else, and they're holding back for whatever reason. And I think one of the biggest things is, and I've heard you talk about this, fear, right? Talk about people's fear and how to kind of break through that so that they can, have that, value system in place that they really know that is truly their authentic self. I think a lot of times, again, it's the fear that holds us back. And then, for me, I've learned from others that I just never want to be that guy when I'm, hopefully 100 plus years, and look back on my life and say, if I had only, right? And I know that that's something that you're trying to help people with as well. Talk about fear and how to break through that.
Well, Bronnie Ware wrote a book on the 5 basic regrets, and people regret because they're not living to their fullest. But those are ultimately based on these 7 fears. The fear of not being intelligent enough, smart enough, degreed enough, educated enough to go out and do something. The fear, if you do it, that you might fail at it and not succeed at it and not achieve it. The fear of, not making money or losing money doing it. The fear of losing loved ones, the respect of loved ones if you do it. The fear of rejection if you don't fit in and you do something different and do something you want. The fear of ill health, death, or disease, and the fear of breaking some morals and ethics or some spiritual authority you're subordinated to. But all of these fears are a byproduct of subordination to other people's value structures. Because when you're living by your highest values and you're most objective, you're most neutral, you don't live in fantasies or phobias. You're living with priorities and you're taking actions. And as long as you're taking high priority actions, you're not focused on those things called fantasies and phobias, philias and phobias. But the second we subordinate to somebody else and put them on a pedestal and try to live in their values, that's why Emerson said envy is ignorance and imitation is suicide. And why Einstein said my contempt for authority is what made me one. He realized that as long as he subordinated and minimized himself to any other human being, he's going to tend to inject their values in life, cloud the clarity of their own highest value, their own mission, and then set up goals that aren't really theirs, which they hesitate on and procrastinate on because it's not high in their values. And then they live in this angst about not achieving something that's not really important to them. They just think it is. Then they do it because of the desire to fit in instead of stand out. But the real dream in life is yearning inside all of us and identifying what it is and finding out what's really most priority in life and giving yourself permission to pursue that, and knowing that you're going to be possibly ridiculed, violently opposed until it's self-evident in the expression. And to be great is to be misunderstood and to possibly be challenged. That's how you stand out. That's how you end up with an authentic expression and no regrets. But if we sit there and become part of the herd, as Ernest Becker says in his Denial of Death, if we go in there and subordinate ourselves to the herd, we won't be a herd in life. We'll fit in and not stand out. And then we'll have the fear of rejection running our lives instead of the fear of mastering our life. I always say that, you can walk on coals, you can do bungee jumps, but that's insignificant compared to the fear of being yourself in a world that wants you to be fitting in. But that's where the greatest achievements occur. Having to walk through the darkened doorway where fear lurks and actively turn on the light of the true authentic self that is inspired, that enlightens a pathway that's unique and genuine and ingenious and creative to other people.
Wow, man, I could keep you for hours, but I'm not going to, because I'm going to respect your time. And I just want to again thank you so much for being here and sharing your wisdom and your knowledge. And I want to thank you for what you're doing, for humanity, because your knowledge and wisdom is inspiring others. It's helping others. And again, thank you for being here. Again, we've been on with Dr. John Demartini. Man, what an individual. And it's really fantastic that you've decided to come on today. If you'd like some more information about Dr. Demartini, you can go to his website. It's drdemartini.com, which is drdemartini.com. Check out his Instagram page, Dr. John Demartini. You can also just Google him. He has written a bunch of books. You can also find all of his books on Amazon. But check out his website as well. If you've been listening, right? If you're listening right now and you're like, man, what he's saying is resonating with me, and I am fearful, but I do want more, and I'm not really quite sure exactly what I want, and I'm having trouble kind of finding it. Go to his website. He has courses there that you can participate in. He's got free videos on YouTube as well. But go to his website, and if you really want it, right? I'm 46 years old. And I've been pretty fortunate in my life to make those decisions. Look, we all kind of have fear, but it's being able to break through some of that stuff. And working with someone like Dr. Demartini is the type of individual that's going to get you that stuff you want, because we talked about this earlier, and he just mentioned it as well, as you never want to look back on life. I mean, life is short, and you never want to look back and say, man, if I'd only done it. Dr. Demartini talked about this a little bit earlier, like, why wait? Let's do it now while we're still here. And, again, I just, man, you've inspired me, and you pushed me more so than you probably even realized. Like, oh man, let's keep pushing through. So it's been such an honor to have you, Dr. Demartini. My name is Mike Alden. That's Dr. Demartini, and we'll see you soon.
Today's episode is brought to you by FrontRowBenefits.com, connecting consumers and businesses with front row access to the greatest health insurance that the United States has to offer. Visit FrontRowBenefits.com. Folks, listen, if you're like me, if you own a business, if you have a family, or if you're an individual and you're looking for front row access to healthcare, maybe you're tired of your premiums going up. Maybe you don't want to pay those high deductibles anymore. Maybe you're tired of paying more and more for your monthly prescriptions, and you want to make sure that you're getting that VIP access, that front row access. Then visit FrontRowBenefits.com and get a free quote. They're connecting consumers and businesses with the top level insurance carriers in the United States at discounted prices. Visit FrontRowBenefits.com. That's FrontRowBenefits.com.